This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome back to Live Talk with Dr. B. Hill, where we do find answers in this opioid crisis that we are in. And please don't forget, if you are new with us and want to ask a question, use the chat button on the right-hand side. Dr. B, how are you today?
I am absolutely wonderful. I thank you very much for asking. Today, we're very, very happy and very fortunate to have Emily with us. And of course, we have Dr. Smith, who is always our faithful companion, as we will say. He is always there to add light to whatever it is that we need light added to. And he is a genius as far as I'm concerned. He has found the end to the opioid crisis. And stop laughing, Dr. Smith, because it's the truth. And how are you today, Dr. Smith? And how are you, Emily?
I'm great. Thank you for asking.
That's wonderful. How about you, Dr. Smith?
Well, you know, Dr. B, one of the things that weighs heavily on my mind, and I've got a couple of emails recently from our people asking them, what would you want to see in a book? I've been working on this book. I want the book to come out to be kind of a how-to guide to go along with the DNA test. And one person in particular just wrote me a very heart-rendering email about the sadness that they have that they realize they may be on buprenorphine the rest of their life, and how so much they just wanted to take nothing, but that was possibly a bridge too far for them, that was possibly something that just wasn't going to be a reality. And that weighed heavily on my mind, and it did change several sections in the book, and it will continue to serve as a guide for me. And then Dr. B, as you know, I was working with Lee this morning, and I'd always had this idea that there could be potentially be a genetic therapy for our people, but there was a stumbling block I didn't know how to get around. And Lee is absolutely brilliant. He's a genius. He said a couple of sentences that pointed out what I had missed, and lo and behold, there may be a light at the end of the tunnel. There may be a possible way we could design a genetic treatment for our people that potentially, theoretically, at least it would work. We'll have to go into clinical trial, and I don't want to give anybody false hope, but I don't want to give up hope either. And that's what I took from that email from the young lady that sent me the email. Very, very well written. As is, it's hard to lose hope. Hard to lose hope. And if we can and use the science, leverage the science, and use what technology we do have today, if we could go back and do that, potentially, we're talking, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But if you've got something in development, and we could potentially have something in development pretty early next year. If you have something in development, it gives people hope, and I don't want our people to lose hope. So, Dr. B, you asked me how I was, and that may be a longer answer than what you were looking for, but there's my answer. I want to do everything possible I can that our people maintain their hope, because God knows they have suffered. God knows they have suffered, and God knows what was done to them was immoral, unethical, wrong. It was bad enough that they were poisoned. It's bad enough that their DNA was changed. But then to get the wrong diagnosis on top of it and have somebody tell you that you've got a mental health problem, you've got a mental health disorder, you're a drug addict, to be genetically damaged and then to be labeled as a drug addict. I mean, that's just pouring salt into the wound. That's just insult to injury. And we talked yesterday, and I like that conversation we had yesterday, Dr. B, about why we're going to hold the people responsible for this, why we're going to hold them accountable. They do not get a hall pass. Not at all. Emily, how are you today?
I'm good. I love how much you all care about the people that you're working with, and how you recognize that this is not a moral deficit of nobody wants to be taking dependent on drugs. Nobody wants that, you know, and it's unfortunate that the only way that some people can find relief from that's because of the pharmacological, or what it does to the body, the physiological effect of the body, as well as the societal impact on how people look at drug addicts, is that you have to put them on another substance, which therefore they're going to could potentially have to be on for the rest of their life, because it's equally as difficult to come off of Suboxone as it is opiates. And in fact, it's a little bit longer of a process, you know, so I'm glad to see that
It's difficult
people are
because
approaching
of
this differently.
the underlying genetic damage is permanent. At least by today's technology, it's
Hmm.
permanent, it's irreversible. So
Yeah.
I'm amazed people can come off of it at all, and it I don't have an explanation for why some people can wean down and why others can't. I do not have an explanation for that. What little bit we know, and we were looking at that this morning, and I got to say, the guy I'm working with is just absolutely brilliant. The little bit that we know, there just isn't any variation in the DNA damage that we're looking at. Emily, the damage in your DNA would look identical to everybody else's damage.
Hmm.
You know, it's not like, you know, the example I gave last week was I had volunteered to help paint a room, and I had splattered paint. You know, I'm a lousy painter. You know, and it's easy to splatter paint. You know, those rollers will throw it everywhere.
Yeah, they do.
I had it on the floor, the ceiling, the windows, but it was a chaotic pattern. There was no rhyme or reason to the pattern. It was a chaotic pattern. Whereas the DNA damage that we've seen so far, there's no chaos involved. It is precise. It is precise and exact, which made it easier to build the test. And I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm kind of glad the test was fairly easy to build once you get past the technology.
Hmm.
It was a fairly easy thing to build, and I feel pretty good about that. But there wasn't any variation. So if there's no variation, how can some people wean down and others can't? You got me on that one. I don't get it. I don't get
The
it.
soul, I think you have to heal the soul as well, as because I think that there's not just DNA damage. There's damage done to your psyche, and who you think of yourself as a person. And I think that that's part of it. You know,
So
it would be nice if we
you
could
got
just take a drug and it would all be better, but there's no way to do that, because I feel like you've been hurt on so many different levels.
the other thing that I worry about is, you know, I can look at those blood values that Dr. B was able to get us on the people who when they were in withdrawal, we drew blood and saw the adrenaline levels, and those levels are not compatible with continued life.
Yeah.
Um, I worry about that, Emily. Um, and we had that one person. We only drew 15 samples of people who were taking buprenorphine every day. But one of them, and Dr. B, you remember this very well, her epinephrine level was 654. And the upper limit of normal is 62. So she's 10 times above normal, more than enough to give you a heart attack. And granted, it was only one person out of 15. So it's what's called anecdotal evidence. It did not reach any level of statistical significance. In other words, it's interesting, but it's not science yet. But
Yeah.
if we're seeing abnormal adrenaline levels in people, even though they're stabilized on buprenorphine, that's a real worry. That's a real
Yeah.
worry. It'd be
Right.
like another for a heart attack.
Yeah.
How is the patient coping? Have you spoken to the patient? Is there any correlation to how she's feeling?
Totally oblivious.
Really?
Remember Dr. B?
Yep. Totally.
Totally
Mhm.
oblivious. Didn't know it. Didn't feel it. because, and this was stunningly interesting, and this might be related. Uh, very, very nice person, very nice person. She was great to talk to, uh, and we spoke for quite a while. And like myself, she hates having her blood drawn.
Oh,
You come at me with a needle, and
yeah.
no, this isn't going to go well. No, no. I'll give you a thousand reasons why you do not need to draw my blood today. I hate having my blood drawn, and she's the same way. So, Emily, I'm kind of thinking maybe what we saw was what's happening in our people is when they get a surge in epinephrine because they're scared of the needle. Maybe it's just a brief surge, but it was higher than it
So
normally would have
high.
been.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a complete unknown. Emily, we did show the study yesterday of Dell, Delle, Dr. Dell and his team, done in 1990, where what Dell did was absolutely simple and brilliant. He bought a bunch of lab mice, fed them morphine until they were dependent on the morphine, took them into the operating room, put them to sleep, opened them up, hooked up little voltmeters all over their nervous system, put a little catheter in their vein, gave them some Narcan, put them in withdrawal. And you know what Narcan is, right? That's what they.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you know Narcan will put you right into withdrawal.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Really bad.
You've been through that?
Yeah, I accidentally took, when I first started, I took some too early and it was not precipitated withdrawal. Is that what it's called?
Oh, you went through precipitated withdrawal.
Yeah, at one point in time.
That's a special type of hell.
Yeah, it really was.
Don't understand that one at all. But Narcan can give you the same type of thing. And so he immediately put these little mice into withdrawal while he had them hooked up to the voltmeters, and he had really zeroed in on that adrenal gland. And sure enough, as soon as he gave them the Narcan and they went into withdrawal, that little voltmeter, the adrenal gland, what's the term we use, Dr. B? It went haywire.
It went haywire.
Went haywire. It surged by 400%. It went completely haywire. And as soon as that little nerve went haywire, of course, it lost control of the adrenal gland. And here comes a big old flood of epinephrine just pouring out of the adrenal gland.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to our people when they go into withdrawal. Our people are losing control of all their organ systems, not just the adrenal gland.
Yeah.
And then when you do it, you lost control of your sweat glands.
Mm-hmm.
You lost control of your hair follicles. You lost control of your heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
You lost control of the eye watering system.
Yep.
You lost control of the nose watering system. And and all our people lose control of their bowels also. They lose control of all their organs. Okay. Nobody really realized that our people were losing control of their adrenal gland also. You know, you lose control of your sweat gland, you start pouring sweat. You lose control of your adrenal gland, you start pouring adrenaline. And adrenaline is one of the most powerful organic molecules in the universe. It will kill you real fast with a heart attack.
Right. Yeah. Have you looked into ibogaine? Have you heard about that? It's not something that's a legal treatment, but I've heard it's had miraculous results.
I stay laser focused on where we are, and I really don't stray away much because we got to get this. We got a lot of work ahead of us. So
it just might be something interesting for you to research and see how it acts and how it's affecting people.
How do you spell it?
ibogaine. It's a natural root bark.
Does it have any opioid in it?
Nope. It's part of the iboga tree found in, I think it's Africa or someplace like that.
Can you get it
over
spell
the that again.
No, this is something, it's like it's a shaman, it's almost like a shamanic treatment, but they've given it to people who have been heroin addicts, and they go through almost like a hallucinogenic state for about 24 hours, and they come out and they have absolutely no withdrawal symptoms. It's almost like it resets your whatever it is to a pre-addicted state. That's what they say.
How do you spell it?
Where did they get this from?
I think you have to go to you have to go out of the country because it's not legal. And big pharma doesn't want that here.
Yeah, I would say.
That costs them a lot of money.
Yeah. God forbid.
Yeah, but it's something that people, I think people that are like at their wits end that just can't, because obviously, the Suboxone is it helps, but then you have that problem where you're going to be on it for the rest of your life. It's another substance that you have to have. And people do want to be free of this, and people have done really well with it, but it's not a medically FDA approved treatment for it.
How do you spell it again?
Yeah, it's IBOGAINE. You should be able to find a ton of information. I mean, I've learned all about it on the internet. So. But it's you get in these situations and it's for the same thing. It's like, yeah, I've gone on to, a post active addiction life. I've gone on to lead a very, what I would consider successful life with the help of this medication. However, if I don't have it, I'm not going to be able to function in my job as a parent. It's one of those things that you have to maintain, and tapering on, slowly. And I have come off of it before. I've been able to taper down off of it. I wish I knew then what I knew now, but in hindsight, it's one of those things that saved my life, really. And having the access to it.
Buprenorphine does save people's lives. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of really good people out there that are suffering.
Yeah. And it's legal. Buprenorphine is legal. I don't know about this other stuff, but
we don't know how many people need buprenorphine that aren't on it. We don't know that number.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Well, you can take a picture of the number of people that have died so far and have quite an idea.
Right. And it is hard to get the buprenorphine. I've had experiences before I was in this program with doctors, and it's like you have to go sit, in an office, and you got to wait sometimes hours to see the doctor, and then they give you the prescription, but it's like you have to be there. It's like it's in the middle of the week. You can't go on the weekends or at nighttime, and if you have a 9-to-5 job, it's and then you have to tell them what you have to go do. It's very difficult, and it's stigmatized, and it's just an awful situation, and this was fueled by greed, and it's very upsetting.
Emily, you said you've been off of buprenorphine once. You were successful coming off. What made you go back on?
I decided that I ran into some old pills that were sitting around that I had from before that I didn't know were there, and I made a really, really stupid decision for a couple of days, and then once that activated again in me.
It's just a shame, because if you can finally get off of it and then all of a sudden you have to have surgery or something else, you're right back on.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Right back on.
Well, Dr. The other thing is we have no data. We have no data at all on what happens with the adrenaline levels when people stop the buprenorphine.
That's true.
That's what's dangerous. Our data indicates over 3 million people have died unnecessarily from a heart attack due to adrenaline. I don't think we can even talk to people about tapering until we draw some blood on people who are tapering, have tapered, and have tapered off. And quite frankly, if we see a bunch of abnormal adrenaline levels on people who have tapered, tapering may be dangerous.
Yeah, you're right.
But yet, like this week, Dr. B, I was reading that stupid thing out of SAMHSA in Tennessee, and included in there was a regulation they had gotten passed through the legislatures in Tennessee that required you to at least consider tapering. How irresponsible
what?
that the doctors in Tennessee were required to discuss tapering with the patients. It was a requirement. You must discuss tapering. There's no science about it. You can't make a recommendation without science. It's irresponsible. And once again, it's these idiots pretending that they know what's going on. Don't get me started.
Good old Tennessee.
Yeah, poor Tennessee.
Emily, where are you?
Maryland.
Thank
Maryland's
God.
tough too.
I mean, it has been tough in the past until your program. I was in South Carolina when I started with this program, and then when I moved back to Maryland, I was really upset because I was afraid because when I first started, I don't think treatment was available in Maryland, and I called and they said, oh well, guess what, we've just got treatment available in Maryland, so I was able, thank God, to continue with it. Because access it's hard. You have to go through, it's a whole thing to be able to even get the medication just to stabilize, just to even, because in that moment where you're like, I want to stop doing this, I'm done with this, then it takes another week for you actually to be able to get some sort of medication or in a program.
Why do you think that is?
I wish I knew. Well, I think because everything is it's heavily regulated, and I think that it's stigmatized, and once again, a lot of it's fueled by greed. These people are in it to make money, so they want you to get into their programs,
Yeah.
and then you have to go through all the red tape to get on it. And I have a fear that what we have here is going to get shut down because I know that
Emily,
there's been,
if the DEA had their way, we would have been shut down last week.
it's so upsetting.
They hate what we are doing. They hate it.
Why?
I don't know.
It's making people better. It's making people not steal. It's helping people to be able to live their lives.
I'll tell you my theory, Emily. The agents at the DEA, some of them are quite frankly incompetent, and they don't want to go out and confront the real criminals, the fentanyl dealers, the heroin dealers, really bad guys with guns. It's a whole lot easier to pretend you're making a difference by investigating physicians, doctors who are providing buprenorphine, and you get to go home at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
It is a
Well,
war.
I think if just one of them that are on this pathway, shall we say, had a problem with opioids, they would understand.
It's hard to believe
Just
that they don't have family that or know somebody that would make them more
I'm sure they
compassionate.
don't believe them. I mean, so many families have not believed their own person in their own family that had this problem. There's so many families that didn't believe it until finally they got them to watch and listen to the science. But that took an awful lot for them to be able to do that because they were not figured as being credible. When your own daughter tells you what she's going through and you're not going through it, isn't it awful hard to believe what they're
Yeah.
saying to you because they have stolen from you, they have lied to you,
Yeah.
they have done everything in this world just to get medication so that they didn't feel this horrible sickness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so they don't believe. That's the problem, is they don't believe.
Yeah. And that was always my motivation, was just to feel better. I don't think I was ever in it to get high. I just didn't want to feel terrible. I just didn't want to feel sick.
And that's what everybody else's is.
Yeah.
But yet they say that you're chasing a high.
Yeah.
You're
Emily,
not
I'll take it
chasing
a
a
step
high.
further. Emily, I'll take it a step further. You made the statement you didn't want to feel sick. I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to say that sickness was so severe, so horrendous, that your brain would have done everything it possibly could to avoid that sickness
Yes.
ever happening,
Mm-hmm.
no
Yeah.
matter what you had to do.
Yeah. It was almost like you knew a bomb was coming. You knew, you could feel it coming, and your whole body just starts to react.
Emily, when you were a little girl, did you ever put the butter knife in the electrical outlet?
No, didn't do that.
Did you ever
Put
touch
your
an
hand
electric
on the
fence?
I
stove.
did. Yeah, no, actually, no, and I did. I definitely got a shock somehow. I don't remember where it came from, but I definitely got
But you remember the shock,
oh, I remember the shock. I'm pretty sure it was had something to do with me touching a wire in the electrical socket or something.
and you never did it again, did you?
Hell no.
Really, when you touched that wire, your adrenal gland gave you a little squirt of epinephrine. Part of the function of that epinephrine is to burn that memory into your brain so that you never do it again.
Yeah.
Emily, every time you went into withdrawal, your adrenal gland was out of control. Your adrenaline levels were sky high, and it burned into your brain. Don't ever let this happen again. And that's
Right.
where you get the sense of a bomb is coming.
Yeah.
Epinephrine is about 400 million years old. And it has developed hand in glove with the brain itself to teach the animals, don't ever do that again. So yes, you've got 400 million years of evolution behind you screaming at you, don't ever go into withdrawal again. Do everything you can. You need to steal, you go ahead and steal. You got to lie, you go ahead and lie. Whatever you got to do not go into withdrawal again.
Which is why medication like Suboxone needs to be readily available to people that want the treatment, in my
Thank you.
opinion.
Yes. Emily, you sound like one of us. What kind of work do you do, Emily?
I've been in the event industry, so I was working as a I do a lot of weddings. That's what I've been doing, but I'm not working right now. I'm actually in the process of looking for another job. I'm interviewing right now, so
We wish you well at it, and you're
thank
obviously a
you.
very
Thank you.
bright, thoughtful person, and we greatly appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and to listen to the science and spread the word with others.
Yeah, and what you got equally the same to you. I mean, what you guys are doing for people by looking into this and saying it's not you're not bad, you're not flawed.
Emily, I don't have the heart to take away their hope. We've got to find a treatment other than buprenorphine. I do
Mm-hmm.
not have it in me to take away people's hope. We must preserve the hope, and
Thank
we
you so
will.
much. Thank
And
you.
we will. And we had a breakthrough this morning, and it really does look pretty good. Now it's going to take 4, 5, 6 years, but I'd rather have the hope that we could
Hey,
have.
5-6 years is
Right.
it's lucky we have
Right.
those 5 or 6 years, you know?
Be able to present our concept to Pfizer in January, February, and
That's
if
great.
Pfizer picks up on it, they've got the capability of doing it.
Yeah. That would be I I can't even think of what that would be like. You know? It's not to be able to reset that. Fix it.
Well, there's Chrissy.
I'm
Emily, we'd
back.
like to ask you to come back as long as you have the opportunity and you're not working. We'd love to have you back on our shows.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'd love to come back. I can't wait to
That'd
hear
be
more about what you're working on next because everything that you've done so far is just it's incredible. It really is.
I'm not going to hear much about it at all because Pfizer will not pick it up unless it has a patent on it. That's the way the pharmaceutical industry works. So if we're gonna if we can't bring Pfizer to the table, it ain't gonna happen. We need either Pfizer, J&J, or Moderna to come to the table with their research, their massive research facility, and push this through. But they're only gonna put something in their facilities that has a patent. So you're not gonna hear much out of me.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Oh, that's true. Right. Well, 5 years or so, I'm ready. I'm here for it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, every Monday through Thursday, 12:30 to 1, Live Talk with Dr. B. Hill. And we will be back tomorrow, and y'all have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.